The ring sparkled on Blaine's hand every morning like a very real miracle. The weeks following the proposal in Malibu passed in a state of both euphoria and serenity. No fireworks. No press releases. Just two men waking up next to each other, brewing coffee, fighting over the bathroom, and occasionally pausing in the small kitchen to stare at Blaine's left hand, as if afraid it was all just a dream. "You still not used to it?" Blaine asked one morning, catching me staring at his ring. "I'm just confirming you haven't run away," I replied, pretending to be serious. He laughed, then stepped closer, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "I've run enough. I'm here now." That deep voice, which had haunted me through an entire sophomore year class in college, now echoed every morning in our Los Angeles apartment. And each time, I thought about the path that had brought us here, from hesitant rumors in the hallways of a California public school to whispered promises by the sea. But engagement wasn't the end. It was a new beginning, and every beginning has its own challenges. The first thing we had to face was family. My mom was the first to know. I called her one evening, with Blaine sitting beside me, holding my hand tightly. "Mom," I said, my heart pounding faster than when I knelt down to propose. "I've proposed to Blaine." There was a pause. Not as long as the first time I came out, but long enough to make me feel a cold sweat on my back. "Are you happy?" she asked finally. I looked at Blaine. He looked back at me with eyes that made every answer crystal clear. "Very happy." My mom sighed, but this time not out of disappointment. "Then I'll learn to be happy with you." Couldn't hold back the tears. Blaine's family was more complicated. He decided to call them himself. I didn't hear the whole conversation, just saw him pacing in the living room, his voice dipping low then rising. "We're engaged," I heard Blaine say. "No, I'm not doing this to rebel against anyone. I'm doing it because I love him." A long silence. I wanted to step in, but I knew I had to let Blaine fight this battle alone. When he hung up, I saw tears in his eyes, but not tears of despair. "They didn't congratulate us," Blaine said softly. "But they didn't hang up either." That was progress. We hugged in the living room, the golden light casting down on the wooden floor. Neither said anything more, but in that tight embrace, I clearly felt that our love was no longer something to hide. It was standing firm before the world. In the days that followed, we started talking about the wedding. "Small," I said. "I don't want to turn it into a spectacle." "Beach or garden?" Blaine asked. "I proposed to you by the sea. Maybe we should change the scenery." He smiled. "You always want a new story. I'm a screenwriter, after all." But amid the jokes and secret Pinterest boards, there were also serious moments. One evening, as we lay on the sofa with my head on Blaine's chest, I asked, "Do you ever get scared?" "Scared of what?" "That one day all this pressure will come back. Family, work, society." Blaine was silent for a while. I heard his heartbeat under my ear, slow, steady, but not completely relaxed. "I'm not afraid of them not accepting me anymore," he said finally. "I'm just afraid of hurting you." I looked up at him. "Have you ever intentionally hurt me?" "No." "Then we'll learn how not to." Blaine kissed my forehead, just like hundreds of times before. But this time, there was an added layer of meaning. Not just love, but commitment. Engagement also brought subtle changes. We started saying future husband half-jokingly. Each time, Blaine would blush. Rare for someone who'd stood in front of investor-filled boardrooms without flinching. As for me, I occasionally caught myself imagining further ahead. A house with a backyard. A dog. Maybe a child, not right away but someday. I'd never allowed myself to think about those things before. As a sophomore hearing rumors about myself, I'd only hoped to love without shame. I hadn't dared dream of forever. Now, forever rested on the hand of the man I loved. But life didn't allow us to stay in the safe zone forever. 3 months after the engagement, I received an email that changed everything. A bigger production company, big enough that I'd thought it would take me 10 years to reach, offered me the lead writing role for a new series. The catch: The project was being filmed and developed in Toronto. 2 years. I read and reread that email 3 times, my heart dancing and sinking at the same time. 2 years in another country. I glanced toward the living room, where Blaine was working remotely, headphones on, focused on his screen. We just rebuilt everything after the distance. Now, distance was at the door again. I didn't know whether to rejoice or panic. And for the first time since kneeling in Malibu, I felt my heart tremble like the day I was a sophomore facing the first rumor. How many trials can the love of 2 men withstand? I didn't know the answer yet, but I knew that evening I'd have to tell Blaine, and everything might change again. I planned to wait until after dinner. Wait until Blaine wasn't focused on spreadsheets. Wait until the apartment sank into the familiar evening quiet. Wait until I could control my voice. But I'd never been good at waiting. Blaine! I called from the office door. He took off his headphones and swiveled his chair. Yeah. I stepped in and sat on the edge of the desk. I just got an email. The "we need more edits" kind or the "your life's about to change" kind? I think the latter. His eyes sharpened immediately. What is it? I handed him my phone. Blaine read, his lips pressing together, eyes scanning each line. I watched every small expression on that face. The man I'd chosen for life. 2 years. Toronto. International series. Lead writer. An opportunity not everyone gets. Blaine set the phone down. God, Emery. This is what you've dreamed of. I know. So why do you look like you just got a summons? I exhaled. Because we've just settled. He was silent for a few seconds. Then he stood and stepped closer to me. What do you think I'll say? Blaine asked. I don't know. I was honest. Part of me is afraid you'll say don't go. And another part is afraid you'll say go too easily. Blaine chuckled softly. You really think I'd say don't go? I don't want to hurt you again. Blaine placed his hands on my cheeks, forcing me to look straight into his eyes. Emery, I don't love you just to tie you down. His voice wasn't loud, but it was firm. We've been apart before, Blaine continued. We've lost each other. The only thing I fear now is that one day you'll look back and think you missed your dream because of me. I swallowed hard. I'd never blame you. Maybe not, but I'd blame myself. The room fell silent. Only the faint hum of the air conditioner. So you want me to go? I asked. Blaine didn't answer right away. He rested his forehead against mine, an old habit from our student days. I want us to live without fear, he said softly. If this makes you bigger, stronger, prouder of yourself, then I want you to go. My heart ached in a strange way, grateful yet anxious. What about us? I asked. Blaine smiled, but his eyes weren't completely calm. We'll have to learn long-distance love again. But this time it's different. How? Last time, we didn't know if we had a future. He touched the ring on his hand lightly. This time, we've already chosen each other. That sentence stayed with me for a long time. The news spread faster than I imagined. My boss wanted a response in 2 weeks. Toronto needed me to start in January. Blaine and I sat at the kitchen table that evening with paper and pen, like 2 people planning finances. Flying back and forth once a month is feasible, Blaine said, jotting notes. I can work remotely part-time. I don't want you to give up your position, I objected. I'm not giving up. I'm adjusting. We calculated costs, schedules, the possibility of a temporary visa for Blaine if he wanted to stay longer. It wasn't an emotional conversation like years ago. No more arguing over screens. It was 2 grown men trying to protect their love with practical plans. But no matter how solid the logic, the heart has its own way of panicking. A week later, I woke up at 3 in the morning. Blaine slept beside me, breathing steadily. I stared at the ceiling, the old feeling returning, the feeling of the night we paused. I quietly got out of bed and went to the balcony. The LA night wind was cool. The city below still twinkled with lights. I was scared. Scared that distance would erode the smallest things. The hand touches, the glances, the habit of forehead touches every morning. scared that one day we'd become strangers again. You're overthinking again. Blaine's voice behind me startled me. He stood at the balcony door, hair messy, oversized t-shirt. I don't want to repeat old mistakes, I said. Blaine stepped closer, wrapping his arms around me from behind. Last time, we loved each other out of fear of losing one another, he said into my ear. This time, we love each other by choice. I'm still scared. So am I. He turned me to face him, looking straight into my eyes in the dim light. But I don't want your life to shrink just because I'm not brave enough. I smiled faintly. You always say things I can't argue with. That's the strategy. We stood there for a long time, saying nothing more, just holding each other, as if memorizing the scent, the heartbeat, the warmth of the other. 2 weeks later, I sent the confirmation email. I was going to Toronto. The final months before leaving were both sweet and heavy. We tried to savor every little thing. Morning walks, watching movies on the sofa, arguing over who does the dishes, making up with slow kisses in the kitchen. There were nights we made love with the intensity of two people about to part again, as if our bodies wanted to etch memories to carry along. One evening, as I lay on Blaine's chest, I asked, "If things get too hard, will you tell me?" "Yes. Promise." "Emery," he lifted my chin. "I've learned that silence is what kills us. I won't let that happen again." I believed him, but I also knew promises are only strong when both keep them. The day I flew to Toronto, the LA sky was annoyingly clear and blue. Blaine drove me to the airport. No drama. No lauters. Just a hug that lasted longer than usual. "I'm proud of you," Blaine said into my ear. "I love you. I love you more." "I don't think that's a valid way to count." He laughed. But when I turned away, I saw his eyes were red. I walked through security, leaving the man I loved for the second time in my life because of a dream. But this time, in my coat pocket wasn't a hidden ring. It was a promise spoken aloud. I didn't know how Toronto would change me. I didn't know how this distance would test us. But I knew one thing. Love isn't standing still in one place. It's daring to step forward, and believing the other is still walking toward you.